And I think that's what people forget, is that on the other side of where you are now to where you want to be is a whole lot of hot mess. And if you're willing to go through it and be shaped and formed, you can get to the thing you actually want.
Yeah.
Welcome to Evolve Leadership, the arena where high-achieving leaders are challenged to redefine their limits. My name is Angus Nelson. I grew up in the United States and I now live in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm an executive coach and I've spent my career advising and training leaders from startups to Fortune 500 companies. And here's what I've learned. An old, ineffective leadership framework will always keep you on a hamster wheel, consumed with work-life balance, burnout, and stress. Here on the show, each week we'll help you rethink the path to achievement. We'll help you discover new principles, new philosophies to the modern leader. Look, the world is relentlessly changing, demanding a new era of leaders. It's time to redefine your limits. So enter the arena, my friend. It's time to evolve.
Welcome out to the Evolve Leadership Show. Today we have a special cacophony, a panel of guests, because we are talking about taking a big dream and seeing it realized. And Angus, you and Samantha get asked all the time, and now me and Sandra get asked all the time. Now that we moved from the United States to Lisbon, Portugal, how do you do it? What was it like for the kids? And many times in encountering a big dream, there's a lot that goes into it. And that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. When we first moved, people said, well, how did you do it? And I would go into like the analytical, logistical side. There's a lot of paperwork. You need to file for the D7 visa. And I started going down this list like, no. They stopped me. It's like, I mean, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, how did you give up on your friends? How did you move out of the neighborhood? How did you move away from your parents? How did you... And now all of a sudden you got into the deeper part of the question is like all these different things that people embrace, they think it's going to be so difficult to decouple from, to disconnect from. And that opens up a whole nother conversation.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We should also maybe identify for anybody that's watching or listening that you are married.
So if you haven't,
woman here.
If you haven't realized, Angus and I are brother-in-laws. We are connected through our wives who are sisters.
We're sisters.
Right.
Yes, two baldies, two beauties, but we make up the Evolve Leadership team. It's been such a fun adventure. But I remember, Angus, you and I 5 years ago, we were sitting on the back porch of Nashville and we made this pact someday. And we use this phrase, which I don't like this phrase anymore, but it at least got the ball rolling. We're like, someday we are going to take our family on a European adventure. Now, at the time, I was working in nonprofit. There was no way I could kind of decouple myself and work remotely. So I just thought maybe it'll be like a 3-month sabbatical touring around Europe. And comes down to it that you guys finally decided enough of someday and we're going to make this happen.
It happened in 2020, I believe. My mom and my sister had moved back to Hawaii.
Yes. And me. I'm included in that package.
And so we were in Nashville with just our family. I remember, and then so COVID happened and we were locked down.
Yeah.
And I was watching a lot of the travel shows, a lot of the like House Hunters International, and watching people live their dreams, like leave what they knew and move away. And I had lived overseas before, so I knew how amazing that was. But I was like, one day I was watching it and this couple had moved to Greece. And I remember the show ended and I just looked at him and I said, that's it. I'm done waiting. We're going to do it. And he looked at me and he was like, okay, what does that mean? Then I was like, I'm done. We're going to do it. I'm tired of waiting. If you want to do something, you better do it. Because what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It just happened one night on a couch in Nashville. And so then it started, I think maybe Greece, because I was really inspired by the Mediterranean lifestyle. And that's like, when you make this move, you go, what do I want? Let's go all in on what do I want? And it was like, I want blue water. I want sunny weather.
Mediterranean food. I want all the healthy food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was Greece. And then, then you take it and you start to go, what's possible? What do I really want as I dig in? We have 2 kids that are in school.
Yeah.
Can they, they can't be homeschooled like we were doing in Nashville. So they have to jump into Greek school. Now they have to learn Greek. Oh, do I really want them to have to do that? How usable is Greek after they spend these years learning? Maybe not Greek. What about Spain?
Because I know Spain came on the radar relatively early on.
We'd been to Barcelona and we were like, it's pretty cool. And we also knew like we didn't want to go to Barcelona. We wanted to go to some of these other, coastal cities further down south where it was warmer and nicer. And we were diving deep into it.
Yeah. And so I was very focused on doing the visa for Spain. And at that time, Spain did not have the digital nomad visa. And so I was like, so disappointed because we were going to need a lot of money. We wouldn't be able to work. And I just felt all of our European dreams were done. Crushed. There's no way. There's no way we can do it. And I remember I kind of cried and I had spent hours, weeks just researching. I was part of every kind of forum to move, expat forum, and
all
just
the Facebook
digging
groups.
in.
Yeah. Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Because so August of 2020, you make a decision, which is, I think ultimately when somebody is making a big leap of some kind, there has to be that moment, that catalytic moment where something internal clicks and there's like, that's it. Yeah. Like you said, like we're doing X. Yeah. And so you started off doing X, but then you ran into what Angus and I like to affectionately call resistance, right? Something didn't work. Yeah. Talk about that moment. You went for Spain and then nothing's working out.
Yeah.
It would be easy, I think, and very forgivable if people are like, oh, she just quit that pursuit and went back to living your normal life. Talk about that moment.
Mm-hmm. We like to talk about it as it doesn't end there. Mm-hmm. We have these moments when we're pursuing something bigger than ourselves and it feels like a dead end. And then you can see it as a dead end, or you can choose to say, it doesn't end here. Yeah. And that's a scary place to be because with your eyeballs, you can't see how it continues. This visibly looks like a dead end. Mm-hmm. And so you can very quickly enter mourning. You can enter just feel mourning as in like, oh my God, this isn't going to work. Yeah. Grieving the dream. Yeah.
And saying it's done. We put the stake in the ground that goes, well, that's over.
That's over. Mm-hmm. And I think I didn't do that. Mm-hmm. I didn't say that was a good journey. Everything in me felt like that was the end, but I didn't put the flag in there and label it the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what ended up happening was, as I cried and I didn't understand and I felt like I had wasted a lot of time, but I woke up the next morning and I just kept looking and I didn't know what I was looking for. And I came across a Facebook group that I was part of that people were saying, hey, did you know in Portugal you can homeschool? And I was like, Portugal? First of all, where's Portugal?
Sure.
And then
my European geography is a little fuzzy.
Yeah. But then also, while I had been researching Spain, I remember hearing some people talking about Portugal and how much easier the visa process was. But it just didn't register because I was going for Spain.
And there were all these little seeds that had been planted. Yeah. Oh, my uncle was just in Portugal. So-and-so just went to Porto. And then the kids were really big into Harry Potter at the time. And then it was the story that she had done some of the writing for Harry Potter in Porto, Portugal. Yeah. Like there was all these weird the universe was kind of coalescing to like co-create with us. Yeah. But in a way that was not conscious to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beautiful thing, I'm going to get emotional, is like if you don't put a flag, if you just don't put a flag in it and you just like stay open, it's amazing how like the kaleidoscope can kind of like shift and a way can be made. Yeah. Do you know, like something that you didn't expect. Yeah. things that you collected along the way that you weren't even sure were things turn out to like form a way. That it sounds very woo when I'm explaining it, but all of a sudden Portugal was like, Portugal, let's dig a little bit deeper. And as we were doing that, it was like confirmation after confirmation was like, oh, Portugal is a great place. Whoa, we watched a show about Portugal. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you can stay open, it's like, it doesn't have to end there. And then Portugal came on the radar, and that's how Portugal came to be. So I wish I could say like I was brilliant and chose Portugal, but I wasn't. I was actually just open.
There's a phrase you use. You've used it. You've made art out of it because it just stuck in my brain, but it really typifies that moment is stand your sacred ground. Like if you want to do anything big or worthwhile in life, there is going to be some form of resistance externally like you experience, but also internally like you experience where you're just like, maybe this wasn't happening, what's going on? But I love that this idea of standing that ground and then being open, because as woo as you thought it sounded, that's how life works.
Yeah.
Life works like that, where you're open. As soon as you're open to possibilities of how things can shift, then all of a sudden when they do, you're like, oh, and you wouldn't have got there had you not taken those first steps.
You didn't register it. They were seeds. You didn't register it as significant at the moment. You just tuck it away. But then it ends up being that you look back on those moments, and there are so many moments in both of our stories like that you go, oh my gosh, that was that moment. And you realize it really was significant.
Yeah.
And there was a moment, and we were looking back, and it was like a pivotal moment when like the tide turned. We can't see clearly until we can look backwards. And you've heard me say like life prepares you for what life is preparing for you. Like our careers, our relationships, our marriage, our kids, like there's so many different things that are just working without us creating, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But we just simply set an intention.
Yeah.
And from that intention, different things come into our world. And again, like co-creating, not to be woo again, but it's like, how did that happen? I don't know. But I had this dream of what it could look like.
Yeah.
I had a hope of what it could look like.
And so many times, I think that's the thing that stops people from moving forward in their whatever big dream is like, yeah, I have this dream, but I don't know how to get there. So I'm not going to do it. It's like, I don't know how to get there either. I didn't know how I was going to find a house in Greece and move there. I didn't know what the moving requirements were. I didn't know, but I just said, I'm moving to Greece. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. So it's like choosing the intention and saying this is what's going to happen without knowing how is, I think, a criteria.
Yeah.
Because if you wait to know how, it doesn't
always reveal
manifest
itself at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. Let me just pause for a second to say this. There is one trait that you will find in every successful leader, no matter their industry, no matter their role. And that trait is action. And we want to inspire ambitious leaders like you to bet on yourself and take action on those audacious goals that you see in your heart. That's why we created our 90-day accelerator. It's a results-driven, battle-tested framework designed specifically for high-performing leaders like you to get unstuck and propel you towards your goals. And in just 90 days, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. To be a part of this elite community, go to evolveleadership.org. Now, back to the show. One thing I thought was really interesting, and you were saying how did you do it? I think one element of that, and you mentioned it with the kids, and you guys had just bought a house in Nashville. There's some element of risk, right? Of actually picking up your whole family, right?
What happens if it doesn't work out?
Financially, there's a lot that went into the move. 100%. Kids, and they're not like little, they weren't tiny. How old were they when you guys decided to?
They were 12 and 13. So the timeline was, so after I had done months of research and then had that Spain thing turn into Portugal. We decided Portugal in December.
Yeah.
We were in Portugal by May, following the year.
So that's compressing a 5-year dream into 6 months.
Yeah.
By just doing it.
And let's be clear.
Yeah.
That didn't mean it was easy. Like we had to bust our ass to make that happen.
Right.
But
and
again,
we did a lot of research.
We did a lot of research, but then, and this is the part that people, get hung up on, is the amount of work and effort and kind of in some ways a push of pain. Like you're going to have to push through some stuff to get to the thing. So selling your stuff, or giving it away, or setting up the house for rentals, or finding property managers, and like all the different things that we had to happen all in this confined time and space. And then somebody says, oh, your cousin's getting married, we got to plan a wedding too. Like all these different things. You're like, well, heck, let's go. Like,
which actually happened.
Like all these different things. And it's like, we didn't let any of that stop us from the forward trajectory. We just...
But let it be said, it was very difficult.
It was hard as hell. And there were some sleepless nights, and there's so much timing. Like, okay, so we're going to move. So we've got 2 vehicles. We have to sell these vehicles, and we got to sell them in just the criteria so that we can get to the airport,
exactly.
or like you can't sell them too early. And like, how do we get around? Like, how do we get to this storage? How do we get this to the Goodwill? How do we, there were so many logistical things as you move around. And if you were to like, just look at it for what it was, like it's a lot, but it was as if we kind of just were naive enough in some ways to just like, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, if you try to get too particular, you actually like gum up the works.
Yeah.
Wait, and let me ask, when did the flood happen?
Oh yeah, because your house got flooded, or your
when was that?
the
When
lower part of your property got flooded.
That was
the flood happened March of that year. So March, we had a massive flood that hit our house that caused thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage.
Maybe somebody would think, because you had just been through that, any other big thing would have been off the table. You're still recovering from a gigantic estate. I mean, this was something that we set up a GoFundMe about. It was like,
it was a real flood, y'all.
Everyone that donated.
It was a disaster. Your house was flooded. Our car that we had stored there was underwater, floating like a baby car in the water.
Noah's Ark.
Right. In fact, I just picked up, I have like 2 or 3 books over there that after the flood, I had taken a picture of all these books that got, mutilated in the flood. And they said, oh, that's one of my favorite books. Let me send you a new copy. Like, there were all these different layers where love was shared to us, in those moments. And now I'm going to get emotional. That, I think there is a level of fearlessness that comes when you go through hard seasons. Because then you realize, like, this didn't kill me. This didn't crush me.
A steel that gets
And
developed.
didn't that not form a base for moving into the next season after that?
And again, this is not until you just said something about it, like another seed planted that said, what the hell are we waiting for?
Mm-hmm. And not only what the hell are you waiting for, but like, all of the treasures that we counted as like, this is not replaceable. They were gone.
Gone.
Just gone.
Baby books, the kids' baby books, like these are treasures.
Photos after photos.
And it's like they're gone. And then you kind of go, well, I'm still standing.
And things fell into a new perspective.
Yeah, new perspective. So anyway, we tell this story because the timeline was crazy, and we like to show people that it's possible. You can do it in 5 years, or you can also do it in 6 months. A lot of times people say, did you get help to do that? How did you do it? No, we did it all on our own. We didn't use a lawyer. We didn't use a relocation specialist. None of that. You guys too, though.
Yeah.
You guys did it all on your own. What was your timeline?
Well, we didn't do it all on our own. We had 2 people paving the way. We had the cheat code.
Her name was Samantha Nelson.
That's right. Yeah. So what is your why? For us, it was you guys, and our kids are your kids' best friends and vice versa. And we have a 16-year-old, and the thought of this pie in the sky, someday we'll have this European adventure. I didn't want her to miss out on that.
Yeah.
And so there was a moment of clarity and a moment of urgency. And I think sometimes when you push the ball or kick the can, whatever metaphor you want to use, when you push the dream further and further, it becomes less and less attainable as opposed to creating your why. And I remember, because Sandra, you guys grew up in Hawaii, and Sandra was looking at me like, I don't know if I want to leave, because Hawaii's, it's such a special place and it's paradise, but to have a why of like, I don't want, especially our eldest daughter, to miss out on this experience. And we want to be experiencing the same city and life and country as you all. That was our why that kind of pushed us over to the edge and say, okay, we're going to do it. Yeah. And as soon as we did, we ran into resistance.
And sometimes I was actually mad about that.
Yeah.
I was mad because I was able to come back to Hawaii after 20 years of living off islands. And so for me, that was such a reconnecting moment. And I felt at home and I felt comfortable. And I was mad that y'all had made that pact. And I was mad that we had this value of wanting to live near family. Honestly, like I knew that, yes, I knew it was my value, but I also had really gotten to a place where I was like, I was home. And I was with extended family over there, taking care of family over there. So it was an internal battle as well of my own values. And it was like this, that definitely was the why to be with you guys, because our value is, like we said, our kids growing up together.
Yeah. And there's this thing that I said, I remember hearing it come out of my mouth, that I will regret it for the rest of my life if. There are those moments, I think, in everyone's life. I think of Sylvester Stallone. He wrote Rocky as a struggling actor, whatever. And it was actually a really good script. His only requirement was that he be the star in it. And so people were willing to pay him. It went up to $350,000, which was way more money than he'd ever made, for him to not act in Rocky. And he just said, I could do it and I would get paid more money than I'd ever seen before. He said by that phrase, but I'll regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't just stick to my guns and try. And then the rest is history.
Wow.
And I think for us, it was a hard time because the kids were thriving in their new schools. They were in this, the beaches, the sunshine,
So it didn't make sense.
It didn't make sense
to the outside world. They would look at you and they would say,
What
are you doing?
We've gotten that a lot. Like, why are you leaving paradise, right?
And everything is working out here, so everybody's thriving.
Yeah. And I think there's a principle that I know I was really challenged with, but I think you guys beautifully illustrated it. And that is, you can't step into these new things in an accelerated way without a growth mindset. And many of you know growth fixed mindset, but just to clarify, there has to be this thing where you don't feel settled and satisfied. Like, I've got it all. I've learned it all. You actually kind of start like a kid who is okay with being bad at things and not knowing things and struggling. And I think especially when you get to a place in your career, place in the community, place where the area you live, it is comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's just easy to stay there. And the only thing that can push you out to something that you see as greater is this growth mindset, right? You guys encounter that?
Yeah. And, it didn't stop with us just getting here. It was like us trying to catch a plane, and then Scarlett, our daughter, has COVID. And suddenly Samantha and Scarlett are staying home, or rather staying at the Drury Inn in Atlanta Airport. Bless their hearts. No plug for that. And that was a whole nother 7 days of meatballs and quarantine. Yeah. Meanwhile, Duncan and I, in 14 bags and 2 overly sized dogs, flew over by ourselves. We got into Frankfurt, and then they want to call back to the States at like 2 a.m. to say, there's a man here with a child. Does he have permission to take this child into Europe? Like, there was crazy every step of the way.
Yeah.
And like $6,000 later, after hotels, foods, logistics, whatever, you're like, what are you people doing?
Yeah.
And we're like, this is just part and parcel. Like, we just have to trust the process. So when Sam and Scarlett finally got to Portugal, we're like, we did it. And And then the next day I tested positive. And now we look back at it and we have like no regrets. Like I would do it again because we knew what it would give us on the other side. And I think that's what people forget is that on the other side of where you are now to where you want to be is a whole lot of hot mess. And if you're willing to go through it and be shaped and formed, you can get to the thing you actually want.
Yeah.
As we wrap up another episode of Evolve Leadership, thank you so much for taking time to invest in you. If there's to be any sustainable growth in your company or even in your relationships, you must grow first. And it's what I love to do for leaders, to help them grow, to challenge their thinking, sharpen self-awareness, to instill an unshakable confidence, and ultimately upgrade their sense of self. And we do this through our proprietary method called Agile EQ Plus, where we're leveraging agile leadership and emotional intelligence. We provide our signature training for individuals, and for businesses, we've designed a unique curriculum for company-wide learning and development. If you'd like to learn more about our training or to schedule a call, you can simply go to evolveleadership.org. And until next time, stay driven, keep climbing, and never stop evolving.